Well, good morning, everybody. It's time. Let me move this microphone a little bit closer so you can hear me. There, that's better. It's Exploring Scripture, episode 51. We've crossed the threshold. Sorry you missed yesterday and the day before, but things just didn't go well. But we're back on track. Today we're going to talk about legions, and we have some errata to cover from the last Exploring Scripture episode that we did. Emily pointed out something that I'd missed, so we'll talk about that here, coming up next on Exploring Scripture. Well, I hope you all are doing well. It's Monday, the 2nd of October. It's October already. Gosh, we're in the middle of fall, and it's time to start thinking about Halloween, and after that, Thanksgiving, and then Christmas is coming right around the corner. Gosh, it just seems like it's going so fast, but that's okay. We are at 51. This is now 51 episodes in. I wish I could say that we've never missed a day, but that is far from the truth. But anyway, so if you remember 3 days ago when we did a contradiction in the Bible about Judas throwing money into the temple, and whether he hung himself or whether he fell headlong and exploded, there was one last bit that I concluded with, and that was that 30 pieces of silver, which I assumed to be a shekel, was worth about $500. Remember that? And I said, I don't think it's possible that you could buy a field for $500. It was called the Field of Blood, and that Judas had bought. And so I left the conversation with, I think Judas bought the field with his own money. But as it turns out, if I would have just kept reading just a little bit longer in Matthew, we would have seen what happened. So let's take a look. In Matthew chapter 27, verse 5 is where we read, so Judas threw the money into the temple and left. Then he went away and hanged himself. But if I would have just kept reading, it would have said what happened to the money. The chief priests picked up the coins and said, it is against the law to put this into the treasury since it is blood money. So they decided to use the money to buy the potter's field as a burial place for foreigners. That is why it has been called the Field of Blood to this day. What is this J, I wonder? Acts chapter 1, verse 19. This is going to take us back to where we were before. Everyone in Judas heard about this, so they called the field in their language, I don't know how to pronounce it, Elikadama?
Hakeldamach.
Hakeldamach. I think I actually got that wrong last time too. I remember I said it sounded like Klingon, and they said it was the Field of Blood. So that's what that's called. Then what was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. They took the 30 pieces of silver, the price set on him by the people of Israel, and they used them to buy the potter's field as the Lord commanded me. So that's what happened to the money. It didn't go into the treasury. The priest picked it up and bought the field as a burial place, as a cemetery. And so I should have just kept reading a little bit. Had I read just a little bit more, we could have completed that series. And so anyway, just wanted to backfill that and set that right for the record. Thank you, Emily, for pointing that out. I appreciate all the feedback all the time. If anybody's got any more feedback, please let me know. I would definitely love to include your thoughts on the air. That looks a little strange to me. Does that look strange to everybody else? It does look a little strange. That's a little bit better. I think I had the camera turned just a little bit, so it was showing a little bit of gray bar there in the screen. So it's just sitting on a stand on my desk, so it's easy to bump and move, and I probably bumped it when I was moving stuff around in my office this morning. So anyway, so I wanted to talk about the cross. I know the title of this episode is Errata and Legion. But there was one particular bit about the cross that I wanted to investigate. And so let me pull up. Oops, we were already on that screen. I wanted to pull it up in the Bible And I wanted to look at 12 legions in the NIV. Maybe it's 12. Probably spelled out 12 legions. There it is. Matthew 26. Let's scroll up a little bit here. In Matthew 26, Jesus is about to get handed over. He's about to be betrayed. And he says, now the betrayer had arranged, in Matthew 26, verse 48, now the betrayer had arranged with a signal with them. The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him. Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, greetings, Rabbi, and kissed him. Jesus replied, do what you came for, friend. Then the men stepped forward, seized Jesus, and arrested him. With that, one of Jesus' companions, I seem to remember having read somewhere that it was Peter. Anybody know who pulled the sword? I think it was Peter. Maybe one of the other Gospels indicates that it was Peter. If you know, put it in the chat room or let me know. Companions reached for his sword and drew it and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Put your sword back in its place, Jesus said to them, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? Let's see what this D represents here. Yeah, here we go. Math. Let's look at some of these. This is the one I was really interested in, I think. But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must happen this way? What scripture needs to be fulfilled? Oh, okay. See verse 24. What's in verse 24? Nothing germane to my point. Okay, so 12 legions of angels. So Jesus knew that he was going to be arrested, and he knew. Emily says John 10 or 18:10. It was Peter that drew the sword. See, I thought I remember that. I couldn't remember what gospel it was in, but thank you, Emily, for posting that. It was Peter that drew the sword. You see, it's just one of those examples where I think I remember the scripture, but don't remember exactly where. So thanks for that. Anyway, so Jesus could have called 12 legions of angels. Now, that seems pretty impressive on the surface, right? 12 legions of angels. But I wanted to find out how impressive that really was. So I looked up the word. I'm going to pull my browser over here. Define legion. And a legion, according to Google, is a unit of about 3,000 to 6,000 men in the ancient Roman army. Could be called a brigade, a regiment, a battalion, a company, a troop, division, squadron, squad, platoon, phalanx, unit, force, etc., etc., etc. So let's just take the high number, 6,000. Okay, somewhere between 3,000 and 6,000. Okay, so 6,000 angels in a legion. Right, so let's do 6,000 times 12 because there were more than 12. But let's just say 12. That's 72,000 angels that Jesus could have had at his disposal at that moment, right? Well, what is the significance of that? What does that mean that 72,000 angels could have come and rescued him? Well, this is where my memory of references fails me, but I do remember reading that in one night, the angel of the Lord killed a whole bunch of people. And so I did a quick Google search. I couldn't find it in Logos. How many people did the angel kill in 2 Kings? In 2 Kings 19:35, it says, let me blow this up so you can read it. Oop, that's shrinking. Blow it up, blow it up, blow it up, and then we'll scroll up. In the NIV, it says, that night, right here, That night the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 in the Assyrian camp. When the people got up the next morning, there were all the dead bodies. 185,000. That's one angel in one night. Let's continue with our math. We're going to multiply that number by 185,000. That, for those that can't read that number, is 13.32 billion. So think about this. Jesus, when he was going to the cross, not only did he not want to go, but he decided to obey. But he could have at once, he says, called more than 12 legions of angels. So how many more? I don't know. But more. And if you take the high number, 6,000, that's 13.2 billion or 13.3 billion people. Well, let's just take the middle road. What is, instead of 6,000, it was between 3 and 6, so that's about 4,500. Let's just take the average. That's 9.9 billion, right? 1, 2, 3, that's 100. 1, 2, 3,000, 1, 2, 3 million, 9.9. So you might as well round that off to 10 billion people if you take the middle of the definition of a legion. So Jesus could have put 10 billion people to death in one night if he wanted to. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like an awful lot. So I did some searching. What is the current population of the earth? If I could spell. And the current population is 7.4 billion as of 2016. Wow. So if Jesus wanted to, he could have destroyed the world over. And in some cases, if you take the high number, and if you assume there's more than 12, maybe there's 13 or 14, he could have destroyed every living human being on the earth today, twice, if he wanted to. Now, there were obviously fewer people alive back then. I don't know how many. Let's see if Google knows. Let's see if it knows. I doubt it. What was the population of the earth in 30 AD? Let's see if it knows. World population estimates. I don't think I'm going to get... Oh, here's a year-by-year world population estimates. I don't know how correct this is, but we go to 1 AD, 500 AD, so let's somewhere around in here, there are less than a billion people. I don't know what that number is, but it's less than a billion. So he could have destroyed the world 10 times over. Conservatively, 10 times over, rather than go to the cross. Wow. That really puts things into perspective. Not only did he not want to go, right? Remember, if you remember the Garden of Gethsemane, he did not want to go in the first place, to the point where he was sweating blood. That's how stressed out he was, right? And he prayed that the cup would be taken from him, but not as his will, but as God's will be done, right? And so God said, obviously, no, you've got to go do this. So he did it. And Peter, as they were arresting him, pulls out his sword, lops off the ear of one of the guards, and Jesus says, no, stop, and heals the guard. And he says, I could have called more than 12 legions of angels. 12 legions. 9.9, you might as well call it 10 billion people he could have killed in one fell swoop. And he would have been right to do it. That's the real rub. He could have destroyed everybody. Because everybody was evil, except for him. But that's not what he did. If you remember, When the flood came back in the Old Testament, only seven people that survived? Noah and company, right? His family, 7 people, if memory serves. Only 7 people survived the flood. So it would have been the equivalent of the flood, except this time we're doing things differently. This time, instead of a flood of water or a flood of angels, Jesus held it back and said, no, I'm going to go do this, knowing full well what he was going to endure on the cross, the punishment he was going to endure, the flogging, the ridicule, the insults, the crown of thorns, and then to die a suffocating, long, horrible death. He knew all of that was coming. Crucifixion was a sort of a normal thing, so he was aware. I mean, it was a normal thing, a normal method of execution in Rome, in Roman times, and so he knew what was coming to him, and yet he surrendered. He could have called 12 legions of angels, more than 12 legions, but he didn't. Do you know why? Well, hopefully the answer to that is obvious. Because he wanted a relationship with you and a relationship with me. And he knew that if he called the legions that were at his disposal, at his command, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. 10 times over, he could have destroyed the world with one command. And he didn't. That's just amazing to me. Hopefully it's amazing to you. That Jesus loved us and loved God and obeyed God to the point where he had an easy out and didn't take it. Now, when was the last time that you can recall in your life that you had to do something that was difficult, where there was an easy out, where there was an easy way to avoid the pain, and you actually decided to go the hard way? Jesus chose to go the hard way. I read most of a book recently called He Chose the Nails. Emily, you could probably remember who the author was. And it said in that book that the author theorized that if the Roman guards hadn't driven the nails into his body, he would have done it himself. Assuming that's physically possible. Because he knew that what he was doing was going to have eternal consequences. Everlasting consequences. Emily says Max Lucado. Thank you, Emily. You're my hero today. Max Lucado wrote He Chose the Nails. I'm pretty sure that's right, actually. Good book. If you could pick it up, read it, give it a look. He would have driven the nails himself because he knew the impact it was going to have for eternity. He conquered death. He conquered sin. He conquered the devil. He conquered it all by doing it the hard way. Emily says Romans 5:7 comes to mind. Let me look up Romans 5:7. Christ died for the ungodly. Very rarely will anyone die for the righteous person, though for a good person someone might possibly die. But God demonstrates his own love for this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Good point, Emily. Well, and there's another passage that says why we were still powerless. When we were still steeped in our sin. Christ died. He could have destroyed everything and been done with it all. But he didn't. He did it the hard way. Are you doing things the hard way because they're what's best? That's the challenge for today. Don't take the easy way out. Even if it is okay, even if it is right. Jesus would have been right to destroy the earth. I mean, God did it with the flood. So Jesus would have been justified in destroying the earth, in my opinion, anyway. But that's not what he did. He had bigger aspirations. Not only did he want to obey, ultimately obey. Do you have that kind of obedience to God? If God says something to you, whether in Scripture or in in some sort of life indication, would you obey God even to do it the hard way? That's an interesting question, something to think about. I hope that stays with you today. I hope you think about that a lot in the coming days. And just remember that with the words of his mouth, Jesus could have ended it all. Emily says, don't just do what is right, but what is best. Yeah, that's right. Do what's best. Jesus knew what was best. And it makes me even more grateful for the cross and the sacrifice that Jesus made, because he could have done it the easy way and been okay, been right. But it wasn't the best way. He had a better way. A very excruciatingly painful, fatal way. But he knew that was the best way. Now you wonder why we call the cross a powerful time in history. Well, that's why. It's exceedingly powerful. It's the power of the cross. When you see people change, that's the power of the cross. When you see people get humble, that's the power of the cross. When you see people do the right thing even though nobody's looking, having some integrity, that's the power of the cross. I wish I had that kind of integrity. I wish I had that kind of conviction. But I don't. Sadly, I'm a sinner. I blow it all the time. Gosh, it just boggles the mind to think that somebody who lived a sinless life, first of all, to live a sinless life, how do you do that? I don't know. I don't have the faintest idea how to do that. I can't even live a sinless day. Every day I do something dumb. But he lived an entire life and had such an impact on the world like none other in human history, and could have put an end to it the easy way and not had to suffer. When was the last time you suffered for the best way? When was the last time I suffered for the best way? Gosh, I don't even know. I'd have to think on that one a little bit. Don't take the easy way. Take the hard way. That's the best way. Think about the cross. Think about what happened. Think about the decisions that were made. The conscious decisions to obey, and then a conscious decision not to destroy. Jesus was determined to do the hard thing. For us. For me and for you. And for all generations. How can you not be impacted by that? I don't know. You gotta have a pretty hard heart not to have that impact you somehow. Anyway, guys, I want to confess something to you. We've been doing 51 episodes of this show, and it's been challenging. Sometimes it's been hard, but the truth is, it is not easy to come up with ideas for the show. It's just not. I mean, I come up with things that I'm interested in, but and really that's kind of the point of the show. We started this show saying I'm going to have my quiet times live on the air, but I want to have quiet times that are impacting not only to me but to you, And so, there used to be the day when I would just say, well, I don't know what to have a quiet time on today, so let me just, I don't know, for a fallback plan, I just open the Bible to the Psalms or Proverbs or some book and just start reading until I found a nugget. Well, we can't really do that in this show. So guys, I really need your help. Tell your friends about the show, and please let me know, give me some ideas that you want to hear about. Use that hashtag right there, Exploring Scripture, or call me up or send me an email at feedback@discipleslife.tv, because I'm finding that it's harder and harder to come up with good, impactful topics. So please, it doesn't matter whether, if you don't want me to give you credit for it, I won't. I'll make it anonymous. That's fine. Just let me know what you want to hear. I'm gonna keep digging. I've got a list. I created a list of about 6 or 8 yesterday, so I have some to keep me going for the next week or so. But this is hard, and I think it's supposed to be hard. Otherwise, everybody would be doing it. But I want to keep this show going. But I need your help. So give me some ideas. Use the hashtag. Let me know what you want to read about, what you want to learn about, and let's keep this show going together. Okay? That's all I got. It's the top of the hour. Remember the cross today. Remember what could have happened and didn't, and be grateful. Have an attitude of gratitude. Even when your life gets hard, just be grateful. Okay? That's all I got. Love you guys. Keep the feedback coming, and we'll talk again tomorrow. Okay? Bye-bye.